Richard Harmon stood at the large window of his office looking out at the Boston skyline. The morning sun reflected off the glass buildings, creating a golden glow that matched the success he had built over 30 years. At 58, Richard had everything most men dreamed of: a real estate empire worth billions, a beautiful wife who hosted the city's most exclusive parties, and 2 sons attending Ivy League schools. But Richard also had something he never wanted, a secret that could destroy everything. 20 miles away from Richard's downtown office, in a secluded estate hidden by tall pine trees, 19-year-old Maya Carter sat in her wheelchair on the back patio. She watched birds dip and dive over the ocean that crashed against the cliffs below. The rhythmic sound of waves had become her main companion over the years. "Would you like your breakfast out here this morning, Miss Maya?" asked Nancy, the nurse who had cared for her since the muscle disease had first appeared 3 years ago. "Yes, please," Maya said, her fingers gripping the wheels of her chair as she adjusted her position to face the small table. "And Nancy, did my father call back yet?" Nancy's face softened with pity. "No, honey, but I left another message with his assistant." Maya nodded, used to disappointment. Richard Harmon had never wanted to be her father. He had made that clear from the moment her mother died 7 years ago. Maya remembered the day Richard first came to their small apartment, his expensive suit and cold eyes so out of place in the modest home she had shared with her mother, Denise. "I'll provide for the child," he had told the social worker, refusing to look at 12-year-old Maya. But no one can know about this arrangement. Maya had learned later that her mother, who had once worked as a housekeeper in one of Richard's hotels, had kept Maya's existence secret at Richard's insistence. He had paid Denise enough money to raise Maya comfortably, but never enough to feel secure. The monthly payments came with strict conditions: never contact Richard, never tell anyone who Maya's father was, never appear at any places Richard or his family might be. When Denise died in the car accident, Richard had 2 choices: let Maya enter the foster system or acknowledge her. He chose a third option. He bought this remote estate, hired full-time staff to care for her, and continued to pretend she didn't exist. Maya sipped her orange juice and looked at the envelope on the table beside her breakfast plate. Inside was the DNA test that proved what she had always known. Richard Harmon was her biological father. The lawyer's letter that came with it explained her rights. As Richard's biological child, she had claims to his estate and his name. "Today is the day," Maya said quietly to herself. After years of being hidden away, after watching her father's real family celebrated in society pages and business magazines, after being treated like a shameful secret, Maya had made her decision. She would no longer be denied her identity. She picked up her phone and dialed Richard's private number, the one he had given her for emergencies only. To her surprise, he answered on the 3rd ring. "Maya, I'm in a meeting," Richard said, his voice tight with irritation. "You've been in meetings for 7 years," Maya replied. "We need to talk, and it can't wait anymore." The silence on the line stretched until Richard finally spoke. "Fine, I'll come by the house at 6. Miles away, in a modest neighborhood that overlooked the same stretch of coastline, 17-year-old Lily Peterson packed her camera equipment into her backpack. She had moved to the area just 3 months ago with her mother, Paula, after her parents' divorce. Photography had become Lily's way of processing the changes in her life. "Mom, I'm going to try that new trail along the cliffs," she called out as she headed to the door. Paula appeared from the kitchen, drying her hands on a towel. "Be careful up there. Those cliffs are dangerous, and be back before dark." "I'll be fine. I want to catch the sunset over the water. The weather app says it's going to be amazing tonight." Lily hugged her mother quickly and stepped outside. The coastal air was cool against her face as Lily followed the trail markers through the woods. She had discovered her love for photography in her old hometown, but the dramatic landscapes here were giving her the best pictures she'd ever taken. Her photography teacher had even suggested she enter a few in a contest. As the afternoon wore on, Lily hiked deeper into the wooded area that ran alongside the cliffs. The trail map showed a viewpoint that should provide a perfect angle for sunset photos. As she rounded a bend in the path, she spotted a large house in the distance perched near the cliff edge. She hadn't realized anyone lived this far out. "Fancy place," she muttered, adjusting her path to avoid trespassing. The trail split, and she took the fork that led away from the property but still offered access to the cliff viewpoint. Back at the cliff house, Maya watched the clock. 5:45. Richard would arrive soon. She wheeled herself around the house, checking that everything was in place. The DNA results were on the coffee table in the living room. Her lawyer's number was programmed as speed dial on her phone. After years of preparation, she felt surprisingly calm. The sound of tires on gravel announced Richard's arrival. Nancy helped Maya into the living room just as Richard stepped through the front door. He didn't bother with a greeting. "I have 15 minutes, he said, checking his watch. "What's so urgent?" Maya gestured to the envelope on the coffee table. "I've confirmed what we both already know. I'm your daughter, Richard." Richard's face hardened as he picked up the papers. "And what do you expect me to do with this?" "Acknowledge me," Maya said simply. "I'm not asking to move into your house or meet your wife, but I want my rightful place in your will, and I want to use my real name. Your name." Richard laughed, a cold sound that filled the room. "Do you have any idea what this would do? The merger we're finalizing next month is worth billions. My wife sits on 3 charity boards. My sons are at Harvard and Yale. You think I'm going to throw all that away because you're feeling sorry for yourself?" Maya felt her face grow hot. "I'm not asking you to throw anything away. I'm asking for what's mine by right. You have a roof over your head and more money than most people see in a lifetime. Be grateful for what you have." "Grateful?" Maya's voice rose. "You've kept me hidden like I'm something shameful. Your secret black daughter in a wheelchair tucked away so no one can see the great Richard Harmon's mistake." Richard's face darkened with anger. "Your mother knew the arrangement. She agreed to it. My mother was 22 and scared when you got her pregnant. She did what she thought was best for me. But she's gone now and I'm old enough to make my own decisions." Outside on the cliff trail, Lily had found the perfect spot. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in spectacular oranges and pinks. She set up her tripod and began taking test shots. Through her zoom lens, she could see parts of the fancy house she'd noticed earlier. A large patio extended toward the cliff edge, with stunning views of the ocean. Lily adjusted her angle to capture more of the sunset and less of the private property. Back inside the house, Richard paced the living room. "What exactly do you want from me?" Maya wheeled herself closer to him. "I want you to tell your lawyer to add me to your will, the same as your other children. And I want legal documentation acknowledging I'm your daughter." "Or what?" Richard's voice was dangerous now. Maya met his gaze steadily. "Or I'll go public myself. I'll take a DNA test through one of those ancestry sites and share my story with every news outlet that will listen." Richard stepped closer, looming over her wheelchair. "You're blackmailing me. I'm asking for what's rightfully mine." Maya turned her wheelchair toward the patio doors. "It's getting stuffy in here. Let's continue this outside." Nancy appeared at the doorway. "Is everything all right, Miss Maya?" "We're fine, Nancy," Maya said. "Mr. Harmon and I are going to get some air. We'll call if we need anything." As Nancy retreated, Richard followed Maya onto the large stone patio that overlooked the ocean. The sun was setting now, casting long shadows across the stone surface. The wind had picked up, carrying the salt spray from the waves crashing against the rocks 200 feet below. "You have until the end of the month to make this right," Maya said, stopping her wheelchair near the edge of the patio. "After that, I'm taking matters into my own hands." Richard stood silently behind her, his mind racing with the implications of her threat. Everything he had built was at risk. His reputation, his business, his family, all of it could come crashing down because of this girl he had never wanted. Through her camera lens, Lily captured the brilliant colors of the sunset. As she adjusted her focus, she noticed movement on the patio of the distant house. 2 people appeared to be in some kind of argument. Curious, she zoomed in further, the powerful lens bringing the scene into sharp focus. A man in an expensive suit stood behind a young woman in a wheelchair. They seemed to be in an intense conversation. Lily hesitated, feeling like she was intruding on a private moment. She started to lower her camera when something in the man's expression made her pause. She lifted the camera again, her finger hovering over the shutter button. The sky turned deep orange as the sun sank lower toward the horizon. Richard's shadow stretched long across the stone patio, reaching past Maya's wheelchair toward the cliff edge. The wind carried the sound of waves crashing against the rocks, far below. "You don't understand what you're doing," Richard said, his voice barely controlled. "This merger has been in the works for 2 years. If it goes through, the company's value will triple." Maya turned her wheelchair to face him. "I understand perfectly. You're worried about money and your public image. That's all you've ever cared about. Do you think I got where I am by being sentimental? By making bad business decisions?" Richard stepped closer. "I've given you a good life. Most people would be grateful." "A good life?" Maya laughed bitterly. "I live in isolation. I have nurses instead of friends. The only time you visit is when there's a problem to solve. You've never once asked what I want." Through her camera lens, Lily could see the tension in the scene unfolding on the distant patio. The man's face was red with anger. The woman in the wheelchair gestured firmly as she spoke. Lily felt uncomfortable watching this private argument, but something kept her finger on the shutter button. The composition was striking, the wheelchair silhouetted against the fiery sky, the tall man looming behind. "I have a right to be recognized as your daughter," Maya continued. "I've already spoken with a lawyer. He says I have a solid case, even without your cooperation." Richard's face went pale. "You went to a lawyer? Without discussing it with me? First? I've been trying to discuss this with you for years. You never listen." Maya pulled an envelope from the side pocket of her wheelchair. "Here's a copy of what he drafted. It's reasonable. Recognition as your legal heir and an equal share with your other children." Richard snatched the envelope and tore it open. His hands shook as he read the document. "Equal share? You think you deserve the same as my sons, who I've raised their entire lives?" "I didn't choose to grow up without you," Maya said quietly. "That was your decision." The waves crashed harder against the cliff face as the wind picked up. Lily shivered and zipped up her jacket, never taking her eye from the camera viewfinder. The light was perfect now, the golden hour photographers dream about. But the scene through her lens was growing more intense by the second. Richard crumpled the paper in his fist. "I won't sign this. Not now. Not ever. Then I'll proceed without your consent," Maya said. "My lawyer will file the paperwork next week. There will be a paternity test, which you know you'll fail. After that, it becomes public record." "You would destroy everything I've built?" Richard's voice was dangerously low. "I'm not trying to destroy anything. I just want what's rightfully mine." Maya turned her wheelchair away from him. "This conversation is over. I've made my decision." As Maya began to wheel herself back toward the house, Richard stood frozen. His mind raced through the consequences of what she threatened. The merger would collapse once word got out. His wife would be humiliated. His sons would learn their father had hidden their half-sister for years. Everything he valued would crumble. In that moment, something broke inside Richard Harmon. 20 years of hiding his mistake, of paying to keep it quiet, of building walls between his real life and this secret shame. It all converged into a single point of rage. "You're right about one thing," he said softly. "This conversation is over." Maya didn't see him move behind her wheelchair. She didn't notice as his hands gripped the handles. Her first warning was the sudden acceleration as he pushed her forward fast and hard, toward the edge of the cliff. "Richard, what are you—" Maya's words turned into a scream as her wheelchair broke through the low, decorative border of plants that lined the patio's edge. For one terrible moment, the wheelchair teetered at the brink. Maya's hands clutched desperately at the wheels, trying to stop the forward momentum. Then gravity took over. Through her camera lens, Lily watched in horror as the man deliberately pushed the wheelchair toward the cliff edge. Her finger pressed the shutter button repeatedly. the camera capturing frame after frame of the unthinkable act. The woman's terrified face, the man's cold determination, the wheelchair tipping over the edge. "No!" Lily gasped, dropping her camera, which swung from its strap around her neck. The sound of the woman's scream echoed across the distance, then abruptly stopped. On the patio, Richard stood motionless, staring at the empty space where Maya had been seconds before. Far below, the waves crashed against the rocks. He took a step back, then another. His mind felt strangely calm, as though watching someone else's actions. He looked around quickly. The house behind him was quiet. Nancy, Maya's nurse, was in the kitchen on the other side of the building. No one had seen what happened. No one would know. Richard walked to the edge and looked down. The fading light made it impossible to see the bottom of the cliff clearly. The tide was coming in, the waves larger now. By morning, any evidence would be washed away. He took several deep breaths to steady himself. An accident. That's what he would tell everyone. A tragic accident. Maya had wanted to watch the sunset. Her wheelchair had rolled too close to the edge. He had tried to save her but couldn't reach her in time. Hidden among the rocks and trees of the cliff trail, Lily crouched down, making herself as small as possible. Her hands shook as she checked the images on her camera's screen. The pictures were clear, undeniable. Frame by frame, they showed the man deliberately pushing the wheelchair over the edge. Richard scanned the area around the property, his eyes narrowing as he searched for any sign of witnesses. Lily ducked lower behind a large rock, her heart pounding so loudly she was sure he would hear it. After what seemed like forever, Richard turned and walked back into the house. Lily stayed frozen in her hiding place, afraid to move. The sun had nearly disappeared now, the sky darkening rapidly. She needed to get away from this place, to find help, to tell someone what she had seen. But if the man saw her leaving, if he realized she had witnessed his crime. Lily waited until the lights came on inside the house, until she could see the man's silhouette moving behind the windows. Then, moving as quietly as possible, she gathered her tripod and backpack. Staying low, she backed away from her viewpoint, deeper into the trees before turning to hurry down the trail. The forest was growing dark. Branches caught at her clothes and hair as she half ran, half stumbled down the path. Her foot caught on a root and she fell, the camera swinging wildly on its strap. She caught herself on her hands, scraping her palms on the rough ground. "Get up," she whispered to herself. "Get up and keep moving." Back at the house, Richard washed his hands in the bathroom sink, watching the water swirl down the drain. He dried his hands carefully on a towel, straightened his tie, and practiced his expression in the mirror. Grief, shock. He needed to look devastated. Nancy knocked on the bathroom door. "Mr. Harmon, is everything all right? Where's Maya?" Richard opened the door, his face a perfect mask of confusion and concern. "I thought she came inside. We were talking on the patio and I went to take a phone call. When I came back, she wasn't there." Nancy's eyes widened. "She's not in her room. I've looked everywhere in the house." "Call the police," Richard said, his voice breaking at just the right moment. "I think there's been an accident." Lily finally reached the main road, her lungs burning from running. The streetlights had come on, pools of yellow light in the gathering darkness. She pulled out her phone with trembling hands and called her mother. "Mom," she gasped when Paula answered. "Mom, I need you to come get me. Something terrible happened. I saw—" She stopped, suddenly aware she was on an open line. "I can't explain now. Please come get me. I'm at the entrance to the cliff trail on Highway 16. "Lily? What's wrong? Are you hurt?" Paula's voice was sharp with worry. "I'm not hurt, but someone else is. Please hurry." As Lily waited by the roadside, police cars with flashing lights sped past, heading toward the cliff house. She clutched her camera tightly. On its memory card was the evidence of what had really happened on that patio. A man had murdered his daughter, thinking no one would ever know. But Lily knew, and she had proof. Lily sat at the kitchen table in her mother's small rental house, her hands wrapped around a mug of tea that had long gone cold. Her camera lay on the table between them, its memory card now removed and hidden in a small plastic case in Paula's pocket. "We need to go to the police," Lily said for the third time since her mother had picked her up from the roadside. Paula ran her fingers through her graying hair, her face tight with worry. "I know, honey, but we need to be careful about how we do this." "What do you mean? I have proof right here." Lily tapped the camera. "That man murdered a woman. He pushed her off a cliff." "And that man is Richard Harmon," Paula said quietly. "I recognized him from your photos. He owns half the businesses in this county. He plays golf with the police chief every Sunday." Lily stared at her mother. "So what, he killed someone?" "I'm not saying we don't go to the police. I'm saying we need to be smart about it." Paula had worked as a legal secretary for 15 years before the divorce forced them to move. She knew how the system worked. Rich men like Harmon have ways of making problems disappear. On the television in the corner of the kitchen, the local news was running a breaking story. Paula turned up the volume. "A tragic accident at the Harmon Coastal Estate this evening," the reporter said, standing in front of the very house Lily had photographed hours earlier. "Maya Carter, a 19-year-old woman with a disability, is presumed dead after apparently falling from the cliff behind the property. Search and rescue teams are currently trying to recover her body, but rough seas are hampering their efforts." The camera cut to Richard Harmon, his face a perfect picture of grief. "Maya was like a daughter to me," he said, his voice breaking. "After her mother, my former employee, died, I took responsibility for her care. She loved watching the sunset from the patio. We think she may have wheeled herself too close to the edge." He covered his face with his hands, unable to continue. "He's lying!" Lily shouted at the TV. "He pushed her! I saw him do it!" Paula muted the television. "This is what I'm talking about. He's already controlling the story." "Then we need to tell the truth now, before his version becomes the official one." Lily stood up, pacing the small kitchen. "We should call the police right now." Paula shook her head. "Not the local police. We need to talk to someone who isn't in Harmon's pocket." She thought for a moment. "There's a detective I worked with in my old job, Greg Kelly. He moved to the state police last year. If anyone will listen to us, it's him." Lily sat back down, suddenly exhausted. "What if they don't believe me? What if they think I'm making it all up? That's why the photos are so important." Paula squeezed her daughter's hand. "You captured evidence of a crime, but we need to protect that evidence, and we need to protect you." Miles away at the Cliff House, Richard Harmon stood in what had been Maya's bedroom. Police officers moved around the property, going through the motions of an investigation that would lead nowhere. Richard had made sure of that with one phone, called to Chief Sanders before the first patrol car even arrived. "Such a tragedy," Chief Sanders said, joining Richard in the doorway. "But accidents happen, especially near those cliffs. We lose a couple of hikers every year." "She was a sweet girl," Richard said, looking appropriately sad. "I tried to give her a good life after her mother passed." "Very generous of you," Sanders nodded. "Not many men would do that for an employee's child." Richard let the implied question hang in the air unanswered. Let Sanders wonder about his relationship with Maya. The suggestion of charity worked better than the truth. "We'll need a formal statement tomorrow," Sanders continued. "Just a formality. The initial report will list it as an accidental death, pending recovery of the body." "Thank you, Jim. I appreciate your handling this delicately." Sanders nodded. Again. "Of course. The last thing we need is the press turning this into some kind of circus." After the police left, Richard poured himself a large scotch and called his lawyer. He needed to make sure all of Maya's documents, especially that damn DNA test and the lawyer's letter, disappeared before anyone started asking questions. In the early morning light, Lily and Paula drove 2 hours to the state police headquarters. Detective Greg Kelly listened carefully as Lily described what she had seen through her camera lens. His face remained neutral, but his eyes grew more serious as she spoke. "You say you have photographs?" he asked when she finished. Paula handed him the memory card. "Everything's on here, the entire sequence." Kelly inserted the card into his computer. The images appeared on his screen, sharp, clear pictures that left no doubt about what had happened. Frame by frame, they showed Richard Harmon deliberately pushing Maya's wheelchair over the cliff edge. These are time-stamped, Kelly noted, and the GPS data in the metadata confirms they were taken from the cliff trail viewpoint. He looked up at Lily. "Did Harmon see you?" Lily shook her head. "I don't think so. I hid when he looked around afterward. Then I ran when he went back inside." "Good." Kelly's face was grim. "Because Richard Harmon is not someone you want as an enemy." He tapped his keyboard, making copies of the files. "This is definitely enough for a warrant, but we need to move carefully. Harmon has a lot of connections." "The local police won't help," Paula said. "Jim Sanders has been in his pocket for years." "I'm aware." Kelly nodded. "That's why I'm going. To take this directly to the district attorney's office. We'll need to keep this quiet until we're ready to move." Lily shifted in her seat. "But what about Maya? Doesn't her family deserve to know what really happened to her?" Kelly and Paula exchanged a look. "From what we can tell," Kelly said gently, "Maya didn't have any family except Harmon. Her mother died years ago. So he gets away with it?" Lily's voice rose. "He kills her and just goes back to his perfect life?" "No," Kelly said firmly. "He doesn't get away with it. But building a case against someone like Harmon takes time and needs to be done right. One mistake and his lawyers will tear it apart." Back at his mansion in the city, Richard reviewed the morning papers with satisfaction. The story had made the local news, but as a small item, a tragic accident at his coastal property. His PR team had managed to keep Maya's name out of most, reports referring to her only as a young woman under Mr. Harmon's care following her mother's death. His phone rang, his wife calling from New York, where she was visiting their oldest son at college. "Richard, I just heard the news." "How awful." Caroline's voice was perfectly balanced between concern and detachment. After all, she had never met Maya, had never even known of her existence until Richard called her last night with the carefully edited version of events. "Yes, it's been terrible," Richard said, allowing a catch in his voice. "The poor girl. I was just trying to give her a good life." "Of course you were, dear. That's the kind of man you are." Caroline paused. "Should we come home? Would that help?" "No need to interrupt Andrew's parents' weekend. The police say it was clearly an accident. I'll handle everything here." After hanging up, Richard smiled slightly. Everything was under control. By next week, this would all be forgotten. The merger would proceed as planned. His life would continue exactly as before, with no one the wiser about the secret he had removed so permanently. What Richard didn't know was that, at that very moment, Detective Kelly was presenting Lily's photographs to a senior district attorney, who was already preparing a warrant for Richard Harmon's arrest on charges of first-degree murder. And in a small house by the coast, Lily Peterson sat at her computer, making secure copies of the murder evidence while her mother called in sick to her new job. Neither of them had slept. Both jumped at every sound outside their windows. "What if he figures out someone saw him?" Lily asked, her voice small in the quiet house. Paula checked that the doors were locked for the third time that morning. "Detective, Kelly promised to have a patrol car drive by regularly, and he said not to talk to anyone about this until they're ready to make an arrest. When will that be?" He couldn't say exactly, but soon. Paula pulled the curtains closed, though the morning sun was bright outside. "Until then, we just need to stay quiet and be careful." Lily nodded, but a cold feeling had settled in her stomach. She had seen the look in Richard Harmon's eyes as he pushed that wheelchair over the cliff. A man who could do that so coldly wouldn't hesitate to silence a witness. For the first time, she truly understood the danger she was in. 3 days passed. The search teams found Maya's body washed up on a small beach 2 miles down the coast. The local newspaper ran a small story about the recovery, mentioning that Richard Harmon had arranged for a private funeral service. No, family members were listed as survivors. Richard sat in his downtown office looking out at the city he practically owned. The merger papers spread across his desk needed his attention, but he found it hard to focus. Something didn't feel right. The whole situation had been handled too easily, too cleanly. He expected more questions, more scrutiny. His assistant buzzed through on the intercom. "Mr. Harmon, Nancy White is here to see you." Richard frowned. Maya's nurse had no reason to visit his office. "Send her in." Nancy entered, looking tired and upset. Her usual neat uniform was replaced by jeans and a simple blouse. "Mr. Harmon, I needed to speak with you directly." "Of course, Nancy. Please sit down." Richard gestured to the chair across from his desk. "How are you holding up? The accident was a shock to all of us." Nancy's eyes narrowed slightly at the word accident, but she sat down. "That's what I wanted to talk to you about. Some things don't make sense." Richard kept his face calm. "What do you mean?" Maya would never have wheeled herself that close to the edge. She was always careful near the cliff. Nancy leaned forward. "And there's something else. The day before she died, she asked me to mail a letter for her. She said it was important that it be sent, even if something happened to her." Richard felt a cold sensation in his stomach. "A letter? To whom?" "I don't know. It was sealed with just an address. I mailed it the morning before." Nancy paused. "Before the accident." Richard stood up and walked to the window, turning his back to hide his expression. "Did she say anything about what was in this letter?" "No. But she seemed worried." "And the two of you argued that evening?" Nancy's voice hardened. "I heard raised voices from the patio." Richard turned back slowly, his face now composed. "We had a disagreement about her care. Nothing serious." He opened a drawer in his desk. "Nancy, you've been through a terrible ordeal. Why don't you take some time off? Paid, of course." He took out a checkbook and wrote a figure that made Nancy's eyes widen. "Consider it a bonus for your dedication to Maya's care." Nancy stared at the check, then back at Richard. "Mr. Harmon, I didn't come here for money. Of course not. But you deserve it." Richard's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Take a vacation. Go somewhere nice." Nancy took the check slowly. "Is there anything else you want to tell me about what happened that night?" "Nothing to tell." Richard's voice was firm. "It was a tragic accident, nothing more." After Nancy left, Richard called his private investigator. "I need you to find out who Maya Carter might have sent a letter to the day before she died. And I need to know if anyone was on that cliff trail the evening of the accident." At the state police headquarters, Detective Kelly and the district attorney reviewed the case against Richard Harmon. "The photographs are compelling evidence," the DA said. "Combined with the autopsy results showing bruising on the victim's back consistent with being pushed, we have a strong case." Kelly nodded. "We also found Maya's nurse, Nancy White. She confirms that Maya and Harmon were arguing that evening, and she says Maya would never have gone that close to the edge voluntarily." "What about motive?" Kelly opened a folder. "This is where it gets interesting. We obtained a search warrant for Maya's personal effects. We found a DNA test confirming Harmon is her biological father, along with correspondence from a lawyer about claiming her rightful inheritance." The DA whistled low. "So she was his daughter, and he killed her to keep it secret." "That's our theory." Kelly tapped another document. "We also found something else. Maya mailed a letter the day before she died. We're trying to track down the recipient." Across town, Lily sat in her bedroom, the blinds drawn despite the sunny day outside. She hadn't been to school all week. Her mother had told the school she was sick, which wasn't far from the truth. She felt sick every time she thought about what she had witnessed. A car pulled into their driveway. Lily peeked through the blinds and recognized Detective Kelly's unmarked police car. She rushed downstairs as her mother opened the door. "We have a problem," Kelly said as soon as he was inside. "Someone broke into our evidence room last night. Your memory card with the photos is missing." Lily felt the blood drain from her face. "What? How is that possible? We think it was an inside job. Someone at the department is on Harmon's payroll." Kelly looked grim. "Do you still have the original files?" Paula nodded. "We made copies on our computer and on a backup drive." "Good. We'll need those now, and you two need to be extra careful. If Harmon knows about the photos, he might know about you." A chill ran through Lily. "You think he would come after us? A man who would murder his own daughter to protect his secret?" "Yes, I think he would." Kelly checked that all the doors were locked. "I'm going to arrange protection for both of you. In the meantime, don't go anywhere alone and don't talk to anyone about the case." Back at his mansion, Richard received a call from his private investigator. "I've got some information, for you, Mr. Harmon. There was someone on that trail the evening of the accident, a teenage girl with a camera. My source at the police station says she took photos." Richard gripped the phone tighter. "Who is she?" "Her name is Lily Peterson. She and her mother moved here about 3 months ago. The girl is a photography student." "And these photos, what do they show?" The investigator paused. "According to my source, they show the entire incident, the argument, and what happened after." Richard closed his eyes. This was the complication he had been feeling, the loose end that needed tying up. "Where can I find this girl?" "She lives with her mother in a rental house on Maple Street. But there's something else you should know. The girl took the photos to a state police detective named Greg Kelly. He's building a case against you." "I see." Richard's mind was already working on solutions. "Keep watching the girl and her mother. Let me know if they go anywhere." After hanging up, Richard called Chief Sanders. "Jim, I need a favor. There's a girl named Lily Peterson who's causing some trouble. I need to know everything about her, and I need you to make sure any evidence she thinks she has disappears." Sanders hesitated. "Richard, I've already helped with the accident report. If this goes any further, we both have problems," Richard said coldly. "Remember who paid for your beach house." That evening, Lily and her mother packed a small bag each. Detective Kelly had arranged for them to stay at a safe house until the investigation was complete. "Just the essentials," Kelly told them. "We'll leave in 20 minutes. Lily carefully packed her laptop with the photo files and the backup drive. These pieces of digital evidence were now the only proof of what really happened to Maya Carter. She zipped her bag closed. Lily noticed a black car driving slowly past their house for the second time. She moved away from the window. "Detective Kelly, I think someone's watching the house." Kelly peered through the blinds. "Black sedan, tinted windows. That's not one of ours." He reached for his gun. "We need to leave now. Go out the back door." Paula grabbed their bags. "What about our things?" "Leave them. We can replace clothes. We can't replace your daughter." As they slipped out the back door into the gathering darkness, Lily heard the sound of a car door opening in front of the house. Her heart pounded as Kelly led them through the backyard to where his car was parked on the next street over. "Get in," he said, opening the back door. "Stay down." As they drove away, Lily looked back at her home, wondering if she would ever see it again. The black sedan was now parked directly in front of their house, and 2 men were approaching the front door. "They know who I am," she whispered. "They know what I saw." "Yes," Kelly said grimly, "but they don't have what matters most, you and the evidence. As long as we have both, we can still bring Harmon to justice." Lily clutched her laptop bag tighter. Inside was the proof that could put a wealthy, powerful man in prison for murder. A man who was now hunting for her. The car sped into the night, carrying them toward safety, and toward the coming fight for justice that would put all their lives at risk. 2 weeks passed. Lily and Paula lived in a small cabin outside the city, guarded by state police officers. The safe house was simple but secure, surrounded by woods that provided natural cover. Lily spent most days inside, afraid to even walk in the yard. "Any news?" she asked when Detective Kelly arrived one morning. Kelly set his coffee on the kitchen table. "We got a court order to search Harmon's offices and homes. Found some interesting things." "Like what?" Paula asked, joining them. "Financial records, showing regular payments to Maya's mother for 19 years. And a recent draft of his will that specifically excluded any unacknowledged children from inheritance." Kelly looked pleased. "That helps establish motive." What about the letter Maya mailed? Lily asked. Did you find out who she sent it to? Yes, it went to a safety deposit box in her name. The court just approved our request to open it. Kelly checked his watch. They're doing that this afternoon. Richard Harmon paced his living room, phone pressed to his ear. What do you mean they found the nurse? I thought you took care of that. His private investigator sounded nervous. She disappeared after your meeting. Turns out she went straight to the state police. And now they have a court order to open a safety deposit box that belonged to your daughter. Richard froze. What's in it? We don't know. But the state police think it's important enough to get a judge to fast-track the order. Richard hung up and poured himself a drink, his hand shaking slightly. Things were unraveling faster than he could contain them. The merger had been delayed, due to personal matters, as his board diplomatically put it. His wife had taken their sons on an extended vacation to Europe, away from the growing whispers. He called Chief Sanders. Jim, I need to know what's in that safety deposit box. And I need to know where they're keeping the Peterson girl. Richard, I can't help you anymore, Sanders said, his voice strained. Internal Affairs is investigating officers who might have tampered with evidence. They're watching all of us, and the FBI just joined the case. The FBI? What for? They're calling it a civil rights investigation because of the racial element. Your daughter was black, and there's evidence you killed her to keep her from claiming her inheritance. Richard threw his glass against the wall. She was going to ruin everything. You understand that, don't you? Everything I built. The line was silent for a moment. Richard, are you recording this call? What? No, of course not. Good, because it sounds like you just admitted to murder. Sanders' voice hardened. I'm not going down with you. I'm cooperating with the investigation. The line went dead. Richard stared at the phone in disbelief. Sanders, too, had abandoned him. Everyone was turning against him. He needed to act now before it was too late. At the bank, Detective Kelly watched as the manager unlocked Maya's safety deposit box. Inside was a sealed envelope and a small digital recorder. Let's see what she left us, Kelly said, opening the envelope first. Inside was a letter written in Maya's careful handwriting. To whoever finds this, if you are reading this, I may be dead. I have reason to believe my father, Richard Harmon, might harm me. He has threatened me directly when I told him I wanted to be recognized as his daughter. I'm including a recording of one of our conversations as proof. I, Maya Carter, am the biological daughter of Richard Harmon, as confirmed by the DNA test in my apartment. If anything happens to me, please make sure the truth is known. Maya Carter. Kelly pressed play on the digital recorder. Richard's voice filled the room. If you pursue this, you'll regret it. Do you understand what I'm saying, Maya? People have accidents all the time, especially people in wheelchairs. Maya's voice calm but determined. Are you threatening me? I'm telling you how things work. You push me, I push back, and I always win. Kelly stopped the recording. We've got him. This is the final piece we needed. At the safe house, Lily sat on the porch, finally brave enough to enjoy the fresh air. A state trooper stood nearby, scanning the woods. Paula was inside, making lunch. A twig snapped in the forest. The trooper turned, hand on his gun. Who's there? Show yourself. Richard stepped out from behind a tree, hands raised. Don't shoot. I just want to talk. The trooper drew his weapon. Richard Harmon, you're under arrest for the murder of Maya Carter. Richard ignored him, looking directly at Lily. You don't understand what she was going to do. She would have destroyed everything. Sometimes sacrifices have to be made. Put your hands behind your head and get on the ground, the trooper ordered. Richard's hand moved to his pocket. I just need to explain. The trooper fired a warning shot. Hands where I can see them. In that moment, several things happened at once. Paula ran outside at the sound of the shot. 3 more state police vehicles roared up the driveway, sirens blaring, and Richard pulled a gun from his pocket. Drop the weapon, multiple voices shouted. Richard looked at the gun in his hand, then at the circle of police officers now surrounding him. The moment stretched, his finger twitching on the trigger. It's over, Harmon, Detective Kelly said, emerging from one of the cars. We found Maya's letter and the recording she made. We have Lily's photos. We have the nurse's testimony. It's done. Richard's shoulders sagged. The gun slipped from his fingers to the ground. As officers moved in to handcuff him, he looked at Lily with empty eyes. She wasn't supposed to matter. She was nobody. She mattered, Lily said quietly. And now everyone will know. 1 month later, Lily sat in a crowded courtroom watching as Richard Harmon was led in wearing an orange jumpsuit. The case had made national headlines. Wealthy businessman murders disabled black daughter to prevent her from claiming inheritance. The judge called the court to order. In the case of the state versus Richard Harmon, how does the defendant plead? Richard's lawyer stood. Not guilty, Your Honor. Lily wasn't surprised. Men like Richard never admitted their crimes, even when caught red-handed. But it didn't matter. The evidence was overwhelming. Maya's recording, Lily's photographs, the nurse's testimony, the DNA test proving Maya was his daughter, the financial records, the modified will. Most damning of all was Richard's own behavior, the cover-up, the threats, the attempt to silence witnesses. No jury would believe his innocence. As they left the courthouse after the arraignment, Detective Kelly walked with Lily and Paula to their car. The DA is confident, says it's one of the strongest murder cases he's ever seen. When will the trial be? Lily asked. Months away. But you don't need to worry. Your part is done for now. Kelly smiled. You did a brave thing, Lily. You could have walked away, pretended you didn't see anything. But you stood up for Maya when no one else would. Lily thought about the young woman in the wheelchair, whose face she had seen only through her camera lens, a woman whose own father had decided she didn't deserve to exist because of who she was. I did what anyone should have done, Lily said. Maya deserved justice. As they drove home, to their real home, which they had finally been able to return to, Paula reached over and squeezed her daughter's hand. I'm proud of you. Standing up to someone as powerful as Harmon took real courage. Lily looked out the window at the passing scenery. I keep thinking about Maya. How lonely she must have been. How afraid at the end. The nurse said Maya was planning to go to college once she got her inheritance, Paula said. She wanted to study law, to help people like herself. She never got the chance. Lily felt tears prick her eyes. It's not fair. No, it's not fair. But because of you, her story will be told, and Richard Harmon will pay for what he did. That evening, Lily went back to the cliff trail with her camera. The sun was setting just as it had been on that fateful day. She found the spot where she had witnessed the murder and set up her tripod. This time. She photographed the empty patio of the cliff house, now abandoned and sealed with police tape. She captured the beautiful orange sky above the ocean. She took pictures of wildflowers growing along the trail. As she worked, Lily felt a strange sense of peace. Maya was gone, but not forgotten. Her story would be told, justice would be served, and Lily would keep taking photographs, capturing moments of truth that might otherwise be lost. Sometimes being in the right place at the right time meant witnessing something terrible, but it also meant having the power to make sure the truth came to light. For Maya, that would have to be enough.